Welcome to Life in the Feed, a podcast for creatives who are involved in creating content for the internet. Today on the pod, we've got content producer Tony Solis, creative director Camille Durchi, and myself, graphic designer Sam Pelkey, at Trib Connect, the official marketing agency for the Salt Lake Tribune. Joining us on the podcast today is Johnny Adolphson, a fine art landscape photographer and photography workshop instructor based out of Heber City, Utah. Johnny, welcome to Life in the Feed.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Good. We're glad to have you. Each week, we look at something we saw in our feed that we found interesting. This week, we noticed something that was very relevant to our last episode, and that's the rebrand of HBO Max to just Max. The new version of the popular streaming service is set to debut May 23rd, but is already getting roasted online, where one user points out that Max is dropping the HBO moniker, but adding the tagline, the one to watch for HBO.
Just chop the HBO, but add it on the tagline, I guess.
I mean, the point of the rebrand is to merge the streaming services Discovery Plus and HBO Max together into one platform, since they're all owned by the same parent company, or is what does John Oliver call it?
Business daddy, business daddy.
And he also roasted them this last week on Last Week Tonight.
Ooh,
but
gotta check that out.
Yeah,
It was a really good episode.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Which is even better that he's an HBO.
Yeah,
like he's on
Time
HBO.
Warner employee.
Yes. So that was the thing. When I was looking this up, I realized that I couldn't really find, it was unclear if you're still seeing HBO, the channel on
like cable.
Yeah, on cable, is it going to be called HBO or is it going to be called Max? From what I can tell, it's called HBO, and it's the streaming service that's rebranded, but we won't really know for sure, I don't think, until May 23rd.
If it still happens.
Okay, but the business end is kind of silly, but let's talk about, the marketing end, since we are we're creatives here.
Yeah.
So they didn't really change the word mark that much. They just kind of like refined the Max part and chopped the HBO branding.
Right. So what they did was they took the font that they used for HBO, but then made it lowercase for Max, because Max was a thinner font.
Okay.
For HBO was that thick block, kind of like the Helvetica black sort of look.
Futura-esque kind of. Yeah.
But they still had, so in the O of HBO, they had a circle, which is supposed to represent a camera lens, because home box office is what HBO stands for. That now is in the A for Max.
Okay,
so
that's a nice little continuation. I like that.
Yeah, so it still has the same kind of look. It's all lowercase, bold. You still kind of get the idea. So when, last week we were talking about logos and rebranding, which be sure to go check out that episode last week. It just, this news dropped the day after we recorded, but right before we posted. And I was like, this would have been great to talk about. So I had to bring it up here. What are your thoughts on, do you think they needed to rebrand?
No, but when a major merger happens, it's not surprising that it happened.
So what do you think? Did they actually need to rebrand?
I mean, my personal opinion, no, I don't. I think they probably could have just kept it on the HBO Max, especially because HBO Max feels like such a new thing. Even though it is like 3 years old, or
right, it's
I don't
not
know,
that
but
old.
It's still like, or it's not that new, right?
Right.
I don't know. It feels HBO Max was like it used to be HBO Go, and then it evolved into HBO Max.
Right.
I don't know. I think they just did a rebrand like 2 or 3 years ago. Probably could have kept it under. I don't think we need to do this cyclical, like every 2 or 3 years we need to have a new mark and a new system.
Right.
Like
Some people
every 10 years maybe, but like every 2 or 3, like we're hitting the button a little too often, I think.
Yeah, some people get trigger happy with branding, and they're like, "Oh, it's new. We gotta show everyone it's new."
Yeah.
But honestly, it's not always.
So
it's mostly consistent thing.
It sounds like one of the reasons why they were doing this, it's, to bring Discovery Plus into the HBO Max, but Discovery Plus users, or viewers, I should say, and HBO Max viewers act different. So with HBO Max, what people were doing is just scrolling, like, I don't know really what I want to watch, and then they'll find something and watch it. Discovery Plus, people knew exactly what they wanted to watch, and they would go to it. And so they wanted to bring that to Max. Now it's going to be called Max. But the problem is,
well, Okay.
I mean, the problem is if they
I've got
want
some issues with that.
Yeah, don't you want people to scroll through and find something? I don't know. It just sounds like a weird.
It makes sense to me that the Discovery Plus users would, immediately know what they're going through because
right. I'm going to watch that documentary.
I'm going to watch that documentary that just dropped, or I'm going to watch this new piece of content that I've been following up on because that's the only reason you have Discovery Plus in the first place. Okay. And then HBO Max, there's such a wide variety of intellectual property that Time Warner owns that's on HBO Max and is rotated out. So yeah, it makes sense that people would scroll and like take their time to find whatever movie they're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm super curious how this is going to plan out. And I know last week we talked about making the rebrand a kind of a series. We might revisit some of these later on, one or two parts. So maybe after May 23rd, we can give it a little time and then come back and be like, all right, so did HBO screw up or did they do something pretty good? Or does it even matter? It's just the name at this point. I was just going to say,
like, does it matter? Like, I think people love to talk crap on things on the internet. So.
Right. It doesn't really matter. So.
I will say it's like not so much of like a reboot. It's kind of like a soft rebrand and it's like, they're still very much playing on the HBO Max branding, so it's not as bad as it could be. It's just kind of like, why did we even drop? Why do we need to do this in the first place?
Yeah. So again, if you want to hear our thoughts on some other companies and their successful or unsuccessful rebrands, and are only in our opinion, go back and listen to our last episode and hear our thoughts. But right now, today's guest, we have Johnny Adolphson. He's a prolific Utah photographer whose work can be seen at the Park City Library through May 28th. Johnny, it's good to meet you, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
I've been a follower of you on Instagram since before I moved to Utah, so I was excited to actually come to the area that you live and see some of these places that you shoot.
Oh, thanks, Tony. It means a lot to me to hear that. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get started in photography? And if you don't mind, how long have you actually been at it?
I've been into art and photography most of my life, but it was 2011 when I got my first real DSLR camera and kind of upped my game and became more serious about it. And it started out for me, I kind of immediately caught the photography bug and it started out looking for ways to just kind of afford the equipment to do that well.
Afford the hobby.
I feel that one.
Afford the hobby.
We're all there.
Justify why I needed all these lenses and this and that. And after kind of got my start as a jack of all trades, shooting commercial work, stock, some portrait work. My passion has always been for landscape photography, and then. In 2014, my wife, Sherry, and I started our small business selling fine art landscape photography. And it's been a gradual progression, or I should maybe an experiment would be a better word, ever since then. And it's kind of grown to the point where it was kind of a side hustle for us back in those days. And now it's become our full-time career for both my wife and I.
Was it scary making that leap to full time?
It was, especially when I really, it's just been within the last few years that we've both committed to becoming a full-time photography business, a fine art landscape photography business. And that was right during the through the pandemic and through some real unstable times. And it's tough with photography because you can't look ahead and see you can't see the paycheck coming 6 months down the road.
You got to bet on yourself.
You've got to bet on yourself. I can look back over the previous few years and see a pattern of income that we go off of. So it's been a tough decision to make, but it's something we love. It's been so super rewarding working for ourselves, and for me to be able to get out and still chase my passion with everything I have, and for us to make a living doing it. It's been an incredible experience, and I'm super grateful for.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
What was your background in before you decided to switch into full-time photography?
A little bit. I've always been a seasonal worker. I've been a ski guide in the winter, a ski patroller. I was a wildland firefighter when I was younger. I literally have never had an indoor job in my life. I've been
living the dream, man.
Yeah, looking at your photos, that makes perfect sense because I'm like, you've got to either stay the night out at some of these spots that are somewhat remote, or get up really early and maybe 4-wheel drive up to a location. So that makes a lot of sense then, that you're just an outdoor guy.
I do truly believe my lifestyle or my work history, my whole led me to this position. And I believe that one of the things that does set my photography apart is I do get up in the middle of nowhere in the night all alone. And I am not afraid to just throw down a sleeping bag on a pad and sleep in the middle of nowhere. And I spend a lot of time hiking in the dark. Awesome. And so, yes, my lifestyle kind of led me to this, but I enjoy the process. I enjoy searching and chasing for light. I spend probably way more time out hiking and searching and looking for something than actually, finding these moments. And really these photographs are about moments. These are moments where a lot of things come together, and I enjoy the search and enjoy the process just as much as I love I always love getting a good banger sunset or something like that. But just enjoy being out there.
Do you plan ahead as far as do you use any apps?
I do.
So you can see what the cloud cover is going to be. And
I do. I use a couple of the primary apps. I use Ventus Sky for cloud cover. And then I use PhotoPills, an app for positioning of the Milky Way, the sun, the moon.
Oh, wow.
A lot of my trips are impulsive, last minute.
Good. I was going to ask you that.
But a lot of the stuff I do plan, especially things like new moons where the Milky Way is going to be in alignment with a landscape feature, or eclipses, or say, for example, the mitten shadow in Monument Valley, where I know at the end of March every year, the shadow from the west mitten is going to cross over the east mitten and create this symmetrical experience. So I know these things are happening. Wow. I'm using apps to trace stuff like that, but then a lot of it's just stick my finger in the air and look at the sky, or if I wake up at 3 a.m, look at the darkness and go, it must be good up there if I just get out and go.
Yeah. So awesome. How far in advance? You said a lot of these are kind of last minute, but how far in advance do you plan? Do you look out and be like, okay, well, I'm going to be home? Because I know you said you just got back from St. George at
I was at the St. George Arts Festival, and then right after that, I just spent the week down in Arizona and Nevada, kind of chasing the super bloom down near Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
And so I put some miles in, and I get out, and whenever I can, I'm out there.
So when
chasing the
when
photographs.
you're home, are you going like, okay, I'm going to plan out 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'm going to go out and shoot this because I know the sun will line up at this spot? Or is it more like last minute, you wake up, like you said, at 3 a.m. all the time? Or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both, especially in the spring and the fall when I have more time. I'm traveling a little further mostly around the West. I have my tick list grows quicker than I check these photos off, but it all is also a lot of last minute stuff. And that's where living in Utah, especially the Wasatch Back, I'm very fortunate to live in an area that's conducive to good photography.
Yeah. You don't have a far to travel.
No, I don't have to go far. I can go an hour in any direction from my home and find amazing compositions and usually a really good light. But, weather forecasting is usually most accurate in a 3 to 5 day period. And so a lot of my decisions on what I'm doing and where I'm going are based on a current forecast, along with information I'm getting from the apps and my own past experience. I may be revisiting a spot where I've been working on getting the perfect shot over years. And a lot of it is very spontaneous. Wake up at 2 a.m, look at the apps and go, okay, I can get up to the meadow on Timpanogos in 3 or 4 hours, and I should be there for sunrise, and there should be some wildflowers.
That's sick.
So
one time I got up early to go shoot a sunrise at Timpanogos, it ended up being overcast and cloudy and raining on me, and ran into a moose on the trail, so I couldn't go any further up the Timp Trail to where the waterfalls
Oh
are.
yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, this isn't going to happen very often.
Got a story out of it though.
I did. I got a very long distance fall shot of the falls because I didn't want to go any closer.
Don't mess with the meese.
Yeah, we're not going to go any closer.
Yeah, those moose can be really aggressive, especially in the fall during the rut.
Terrifying.
Very
I'm
scary.
so scared of them. How does that work with? I know you said it like 3 to 5 days, like the optimal time for forecasting. I'm imagining that like this also applies to like how you edit it and like when you choose to edit it too, because you're not just like planning out, like carving out times of an edit when the light's good or like you're chasing something.
And really with all aspects of photography, the actual shot or getting the shot is kind of like the tip of the iceberg in the editing's the behind the scene 2/3. And I usually just make time. If I get a really good shot, and a lot of professional photographers really like to just sit on their images so they don't let the emotion affect their editing. But I love what I do, and if I get a good shot, I run right home and I run right home and edit it.
Yeah, I don't want to. Whenever I get a good shot, I always go to that one first.
Yeah,
like I know where it is in the catalog. I cull around it, and then I edit that one first, and I let the emotion like guide my editing choices because I want the emotion to be present.
Yeah, me too. I do a lot of that.
What I'm capturing.
Yeah, I do too. I kind of I'm the same way. If I get something I'm really happy about, I run right home and plug the memory card right into the computer, and I kind of like posting fresh content. Like this was this morning, this was 2 hours ago, and this is what happened. So I do like that, but editing a lot of time, whenever I can.
Okay.
What do you use to edit?
I use Adobe software, Lightroom, and Photoshop.
Okay. Nice. How? What's the ratio, do you think, of photos that actually enter from or go from Lightroom to Photoshop, or do you do it for all of them, or?
Most of my editing is real basic, really straightforward. I'm doing a lot of the same techniques that Ansel Adams,
Dodge and burn,
Galen Rowell, dodging and burning, light vignettes, just playing with light and shadow. What I'm doing in Lightroom and Photoshop, and primarily in Lightroom, is pretty much the same thing that the masters were doing back in the darkroom days of film. I don't get too involved with that stuff. I really try to let the light, let Mother Nature kind of find it for me. Where I do get a little more involved with Photoshop is with my Milky Way shooting.
Oh yeah,
sometimes, especially when I was working in the desert Southwest as a photo workshop instructor, we would shoot multiple shots for the sky. We would do a long exposure foreground at low ISO with sky shots at higher ISO and kind of blend those all together. But for the most part, most of the images that are on my website, it's been less than 20 minutes of post processing to achieve that look. I've developed my editing style over the years, and I've kind of just fallen into a pattern with my editing. And
less than 20 minutes. That's impressive.
Well, I mean, if you've been doing it for a while,
if you've got the system down.
The Milky Way shots where I'm dealing with blending skies and layering, those things can be a little more time consuming. But a lot of the shots you see on my website are pretty basic as far as the editing itself.
When you're doing a workshop, when you're leading a workshop, which I've wanted to take actually some of your workshops and I've never been able to. There was a fall workshop one of the first years I was here that I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I couldn't for whatever reason. But do you talk about the post-processing part, or are you really there just for the front end, the shooting?
We do post-processing throughout the workshops as well. I was working for a company called Action Photo Tours, running those workshops. Our art business has gotten to the point where my wife and I are so busy that I've left that company, and so I do have more photo workshops coming up in the future under our own brand. But
nice.
That's still in the works.
Yes, good job.
Still in the works, and for right now, we're kind of up to our neck in the art sales and the art shows and stuff like that. But we are working towards putting together some workshops within northern Utah under our own brand. That'll be
perfect. What
I'll
a good
have more to
problem
talk about that in the future.
So busy.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any secret spots that you're like, I'm not going to take the workshop people out. This is like, these are just for me that I have found. Anything like that?
When I'm running these workshops, no.
Okay.
I'll do my best to get the people into the best light possible, regardless if it's my little secret stash or not. Most of my what I would consider my secret spots or stuff like that is stuff that's a long ways out, more than 5 miles up there. I mean, I do have some little nooks and crannies here and there and really, I think that's something that sets me apart. Is I am looking for my own compositions and my own. I try not to just follow the herd when it comes to landscape. I love shooting the iconic, Delicate Arch, Mesa Arch, Canyonlands.
I was going to say,
Moab.
I saw your
favorites.
Yeah, you have a photo of Mesa Arch, I think it is, and I'm like, how are there no other people in this photo? Because that's one of those famous spots where
it's an interesting story, and it's a spot I came back to multiple times over the years to get it just right. And usually, a couple times I got down there and there was clouds and stormy skies and not the sunburst I wanted, but more often than not I would go down there and just so many people trying to get the shot that I just simply couldn't stand in the right spot, and ended up
didn't want to wait in line either.
I finally got a good Mesa Arch shot that went down midwinter, mid-pandemic.
Oh,
and still woke up at like 4 a.m. and there it is right there.
Oh, wow.
A very simple shot that everybody in the world gets, but it took me multiple tries to get that image just right. And finally I got that shot, and I think I'm good on that location for now, but it's always an incredible experience watching the sunrise come up in Mesa Arch, whether it's the most popular spot or the backcountry.
Is crazy.
It's amazing. It almost it's too perfect.
So on that one, I actually the shot I used, I waited for the sun to rise a little bit more. So when the sun was kind of centered in between the horizon and the underbelly of the arch, shooting at an aperture of about f/14, I was able to get that clean sun. And I shoot Canon cameras. I've used Canon gear throughout my whole career, and Canon lenses are known to, especially the Canon 16 to 35 2.8 is known to produce a good sun star with tight rays like that. So I really waited till the sun got high enough to get rays on the underbelly of the arch. So yeah, I love to shoot the classics, but really what I find rewarding is just kind of being out in the middle of nowhere and discovering shots and compositions that I haven't seen before on the internet and haven't seen as much as. But honestly, the folks that are buying my art, sometimes people I see something that they identify with.
Yeah.
These secret spots that only I know about. To me, those are very rewarding, but not everybody wants a spot of my.
Right.
Sometimes people want the classics.
People want the icons, the classics. They don't always want a shot of my top secret location in their living room.
There's a spot. I saw this photo here. This is the Christmas Meadows sunset reflection. I saw this on your Instagram, and on Instagram, you don't always put the name of the photo or where it is. You just say like the Wasatch Back or something.
Yes, I'm pretty careful with what I post on the internet as far as locate. I've just seen so many of these places just overused and overloved.
Yes.
So I am careful with posting exact locations on the internet, but on my fine art website, I'm a little more specific.
This photo I saw, and I was like, I want to go to this spot. I just wanted to be there. And your Instagram did not have. Now I could have gone to your website and found the name of it. Yeah. Now that I see it, I'm like, oh well, this would have been the easy thing to do.
The more you know.
But I tried to do some like reverse Google image search. I did Google Earth and looked around, and I finally found the spot on my own. Oh, and then have gone up there a couple times and not been successful. I'm like, okay, this is a kind of a difficult spot to shoot because, especially at sunset, if you're on YouTube and Spotify, I'm putting these photos up so you'll be able to follow along. So this is looking over a river, the Bear River, if I remember correctly. And I can't remember the name of those peaks in the distance, but you're in a valley that when those peaks are lit up, the valley is dark. And you can see, and even in this photo on the upper left side, you can see the sunset still hitting that peak. And when I was there, first of all, I didn't have great cloud cover, so it was very dull up in the sky. Like I didn't get a shot that I liked, but I got this. I stood probably in the same spot you're standing. Like I'm like, okay, this is where he was. This is how
like
he did it.
Phone to like line up the shot.
Kind of did it from memory, but I'm like, all right, you get the reflection, and so you have to be this high or this low to get that perfect reflection, and you don't want any movement in the water. But I had this definite line going up the left side of that valley that was really giving me fits. Like I just couldn't get my exposure the way that I liked it. And I shoot a lot of like multiple exposures so that sometimes I can blend them, or I can just like, this is the one that worked. Yeah. And that way I'm not fiddling too much when the sun is going. But I just couldn't find. I'm more impressed with the photo now, having been there, than I was before when I first saw it.
Yeah.
Because I tried to recreate it and was like, that's not working.
Dynamic range can be tough, especially with sunsets when you've got a dark valley and you've got light on the peak and a light sky behind it. And especially, modern cameras do a pretty good job controlling that dynamic range. But dynamic range can be tough. Sometimes I'll use tools in the field, Stingray filters, circular polarizers, a lot of graduated neutral, Galen Rowell graduated neutral density filters by Stingray. On that shot right there, I believe it was a bracketed shot. So I think I shot 3 exposures, blended them together. And really the trick with that is just keeping an eye on the histogram when I'm shooting, especially in those low light conditions. Sometimes the I have a little motto, the LCD screen lies, histogram tells the truth.
Yes.
So really keeping an eye on the histogram to make sure I'm producing an image that I know I can work with and reel those tones back in and kind of create that symmetrical reflective look. Mm-hmm. But it can be tough controlling the light, the dynamic range in a shot like this.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of seeing images on Instagram, where I found this one, you've got 51,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, that's
just a few.
Just a couple.
Yeah, just a casual 51K.
That's pretty impressive. This is the other thing when I pitched you as a possible guest here, I would go like, okay, Camille, look, 51,000 followers. Like, yeah, we might want to have this guy in.
Yeah, that seems good.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
But no, the photography was great. And it was not just the followers for me. But, yeah.
So has Instagram, I mean, obviously I found you through Instagram, but have you found that Instagram has really helped or hindered, or are you curating what you're posting?
It has. I believe I started my Instagram account in 2016. Before that, I was mostly on Facebook. That was around the same time my photography was really taking off locally. I was hesitant I didn't get on Instagram right off the bat like a lot of the big name photographers did. In my mind, I was like, Instagram, isn't that for like teenagers or something? And that's what
Look
a lot
at
of
those
people
filters. Those are gross.
Yeah, and then a good friend of mine who worked in the marketing department up at USU finally started my Instagram, got my profile pic on there, said, here you go, do good things. And then so I did have some advice from some friends and coworkers when I first got started as well. But it grew steadily. And then especially when I was working as a photography workshop instructor in the desert Southwest, it really tended to grow. And again, I'm not sure if those are people interested in the art or just interested in the location. And it up until about a year ago, it really grew steadily.
I was about to ask you about that. About a year ago is when Instagram's algorithm switched from photo-based to more of a Reels-based.
Yes.
You don't have a lot of Reels. I think, 2 or 3?
I have 2 or 3, and they're mostly just some hack job I did with my phone out there next to my tripod. And I probably need to start developing more Reels. But honestly, I mean, I'm a photographer. I shoot stills, and my Instagram I hit 50K about a year ago, and then it really slowed down. I do think it was when Instagram, the algorithms became more reel-based. I really didn't, it was kind of an interesting story, that same Longhorn image we were talking about earlier. Suddenly I had a big bump in my Instagram about 6 months ago. And the reason was Britney Spears had shared my black and white Longhorn image on her Instagram feed. And suddenly there's the black and white. And suddenly my Instagram bumped from 50K to 51K. And it took a brief moment of internet fame like that to actually get to 51K. And
thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Brittany.
That's awesome.
And so I've really noticed a decline in my growth on my Instagram and also my engagement. I'm getting anywhere from 300 to 600 likes, where I used to always get over 1,000 likes. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that is I'm seeing a connection with the people that have been following me for years, the people that are commenting, and I definitely feel like I'm still making a connection with the people and the followers I already had. And
I'm one of them.
And every day I see so and so's following you, or I'm getting more followers every day, but my Instagram does not seem to grow. And so I don't know if that's algorithm based or if it's just bots or robots, and I'm getting 10,000 bots a day and losing 500 a day. Who knows? It's a mystery to a middle-aged guy like me, the internet is still somewhat mysterious.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly grateful for the following I've had on Instagram and on Facebook. It's enabled me to not only promote our art business, but announce the shows and the events we're going to, get my images out there, and it's been a wonderful experience. It's been great.
That's awesome. Have you looked into like maybe buying a verification to like try to upgrade that algorithm engagement?
I have not. Everything I've done on the internet is organic. I've not paid for a single follower. I've invited people from my Facebook business page, which is nice. You can invite people, but aside from inviting people on Facebook that like everything I've done on social media is organic.
That's awesome.
That's even more impressive than
really.
That is very impressive. You don't see that at all these days at all.
But yeah, it's interesting so certainly glad for the 50,000 followers I have, and those are the people I still have I feel like I have a connection with these days, but my growth has been limited since the algorithm changed. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen, if I'm going to have to change and become more reel based myself, or if I just wait it out and see what happens.
It's kind of weird that Meta is putting so many small business owners in that position to change their whole business model around an algorithm. Like, crazy to me.
Yeah, especially photographers. A lot of photographers I know have been going to what's that other one? That other social media, something with a V.
Oh, Vero?
Vero, yes,
Yeah,
thank
Vero.
you. Thanks, Camille.
Yeah.
I was drawing blanks there. Yeah, and I started a Vero account, but just really didn't. I might have 15, 20 followers that I know, and really didn't take off anywhere for me. So I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel and do something, but it's been an interesting, especially for me, not really being a typical influencer type personality or young person, but it's been an interesting role, but certainly been grateful for the experience and the connections I've made through the internet.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for young photographers or people starting out, or somebody who wants to make a living as a photographer? Because I know it's pretty rare that you can make a living just doing photography without supplementing it with something else. Even Ansel Adams had to take family photos to make ends meet. So.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that's how I got started. And really, I wish I had some solid plan, A to B. This is what I did, step 1, step 2, step 3. But for my wife and I, it's been somewhat of an experiment, and it's worked, and we're doing it. But I guess really as a photographer, I would just say to really, like, what made a big difference for me is when I did focus and find my niche, which is fine art landscape photography, and really try to strengthen my niche and stay in my niche. Also, defining my own artistic ethics. There's all sorts of AI, there's drop-in skies, all sorts of nonsense. There are all sorts of stuff people are doing out there. And, for me, I like to have, obviously my Milky Way shots are put together, but for me, my ethic is I want people to look at my photograph and go, okay, yeah, he stood there and that's what he saw. And so
you're not changing the position of a leaf.
Yeah, I'm not
necessarily.
going to be. I've definitely used the clone stamp to get a few beer cans out of my foreground I didn't see before I took the picture and stuff like that. But I'm not. I don't do a lot of adding anything in or rearranging things like that. That's so to a young photographer, I'd say find your niche and develop your own ethics and stick to that, no matter what. Even if you have to get a day job in the meantime. But
I think as long as you're like making progress towards that always, and these things can like change over as you grow as an artist too.
Yeah, they certainly can.
I found making art or making photos that you enjoy, kind of your love of that image or that process kind of comes through. So if you're like, well, I'm just going to take the photo that everybody's going to press like on, you're probably not going to be as successful as like, I really like this photo and I love doing it.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that there's a purity in the chase and the search for really just giving it your all to go after what you like, and
the process.
Yeah. And it's just keep at it. For me, it took years. It took before The last few years, my wife and I have been making our living running our fine art photography business. But it like I said, I started in 2011. We started our business selling prints in 2014, and it took a long time to where it got to the point it is now. Mm-hmm. So a lot of, stick with it.
Now you're in cool places like the Park City Museum, like no big deal.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, I was excited. I've got
awesome.
a display up right now, an exhibit. Another Park City photographer, Deb Deekoff, and myself have been are sharing this exhibit space, and it's up in the Park City Library through May 28th. We'll be at the Park City Market this summer. We have a bunch of the dates we're doing at Oktoberfest up in Snowbird this fall.
Oh, yes, I go there every year.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. It's always a nice place. We'll be at the Sundance Harvest Market. Hoping to get into a couple other art festivals around. Springville Arts Festival. We did just get back from St. George, and so that's moving into a art festival and vendor market season.
Yep. Are you going to do any of the downtown markets in Salt Lake?
I haven't yet. We haven't yet. I've looked into those, and hopefully
I love those
in
right
the
across the street from my apartment. So big fan of that one.
Yeah, I haven't yet.
One last thing I wanted to ask you. Is there any one image or one moment from your photography career where something just clicked, or you're the most proud of, or was something that you're like, this is why I'm doing this, and I'm going to keep doing it. Where you saw the final output or saw the impact it had on other people.
Oh gosh,
it's probably having to go back a ways in your
to define one moment. There's been a couple of defining moments for me. I do have a favorite shot, Winter Tree in the Fog. Just one of a.
Oh, I love that shot. I was going to bring that one up. Okay, because that shot, you have I think 3 versions of that shot. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do. From that same location, 2 from that day, and 1 from and that was just a very. There it is, right there. And that was an interesting
and then you
morning.
have a square version. So right now we're looking on your website and we see the horizontal version with a lot of negative space off to the side, which is it's an easy to do crop, but it's hard to do to actually hit the accept to keep that negative space. I found because I want to crop things tight and to let it breathe or even when you're out there composing it to like give it room to breathe, I think shows a lot of restraint. Personally,
yeah, and for some reason especially the one the vertical Winter Tree in the Fog has been my personal. I always caution people. It looks great on my display wall with my gray panels. Even on the white background on my website, you can see how it kind of loses. You lose the edge a little bit with a white image. So I tell people to either put it on a wall with some color behind it, or put it in a black float frame or a barnwood frame. Mm-hmm. But that's been one of my personal favorite images that I got near my home. 5 minutes from my home in Heber Valley, coming back from Deer Creek after getting skunked by the fog, thinking, I'm not going to get a shot, and then drove by that tree, and it was kind of ebbing and flowing and then reappearing, and normally you can see a ranch back behind there, but that morning the fog had created this perfect minimalist scene, and of all the photographs on my website, that's probably my very favorite. But then I guess another defining moment was a week or 2 after getting my camera in 2011. I was down at Deer Creek Reservoir by my house, and I just saw this amazing winter sunset out in Deer Creek, and captured the first photo where I ever shot. I was like, wow, I could make a print of that.
I did that.
I remember that feeling.
And that was... it's an older shot. I don't even know if I've called my images so many times. I don't even know if that shot is even on my site anymore or not. But that was a moment as well. So
I think every photographer anyway has that moment. Like it's maybe not a great shot, but it's the shot you're like, oh wait a second, I could
I like this.
Yeah, I could keep doing this.
Looking back at that shot I took in 2011, it may not make the cut by my standards today, but at the time I was just psyched. I was just wow.
Yeah.
But so there's been a few moments, but those are a couple of them.
Once you get that feeling, I feel like it's a wrap. Like you just dedicated your life to chasing that moment again.
And selling prints so you can buy more lenses and more gears. I think there's a little bit of
feel good again.
That's right. Feeling again. Listen, thanks for coming in and joining us and talking with us today on Live in the Feed. Why don't you tell everyone your social media handles and your website just so that they can follow you?
So on Instagram, I'm Johnny A. Dawson Photography, and my Facebook photography business page is also Johnny Adolson Photography. And my website is www.johnnyadolsonphotography.com.
Man, so, you got it all.
Straightforward,
That's great.
Real original thinker there. But and I know it's a long word, Johnny Adolson Photography. But just start typing, and it should come up.
Yeah, if you Google it anyway, all your feeds and stuff are going to come up.
Plus, that's awesome. You got the URL and everything, because we've had conversations on other episodes where we can't get the URLs we really want.
Yeah, we when I made our personal website, johnnyadolsonphotography.com, we did it through Art Storefronts, and we bought that URL through Google. Luckily it was still open, and
perfect.
Yeah, that's an important part of all this stuff.
Yeah. The brands are important. And when your name is your brand, then that's really important. Yeah. It's hard for you to rebrand when that's your name.
It is. We've talked about rebranding to something that doesn't involve the name, and we've just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah,
that's the name.
Good choice.
Well, that's all we have for today. So if you have any questions or want to learn more about how we can help your business create more content, be sure to reach out by clicking on the link in the show notes. And if you found this podcast interesting, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
When local journalism thrives, democracy does too. Support the Salt Lake Tribune, the nation's first traditional newspaper to become a nonprofit. Visit sltrib.com/donate to help keep local journalism alive in Utah.